Welcome to On Pointe. The Grosse Pointe Public School System is working to answer our community's questions as we work through the process of reconfiguration. And today we continue a series of videos, short videos, so they're easily digestible, answering one frequently asked question at a time. Joining us to do that is our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Gary Niehaus. So the question that our educated community is asking now is, tell me about the data that our school board that we elected is using to make these difficult decisions. Tell me about Pointe Cressa. Tell me about census and how that might help. Give me insight into what you've heard about that data.
Most everybody that I know in the school business uses live birth.
Okay.
And so what we're looking at, the number of live births in basically Wayne County. We look at live births across the state of Michigan, and obviously the live births across the United States. Everywhere we look, we have less live births. And so in our situation here, we're looking at a percentage. So we go back 3 to 5 years and look at the percentage of live births that end up in our classrooms as kindergartners.
And it's not just the kids that are born in Wayne County. They could be born in any county as long as they're a resident of our school district. Okay.
And so what they do is the Pointe Cressa will look at live births and make a prediction then off of live births as to what our numbers are. They've also done a study, a historical study of our enrollments from year to year to year. And as I said, those numbers grow as a class of 450 kindergartners will grow sometimes upwards of 100 students before they get to be seniors.
Yeah.
So the idea behind that is that as they grow, we know what grade levels they grow, and we add to the quadrant or the quotient that goes into that.
Okay.
The issue is that then people say, well, we see the number of strollers in town. We know that there are 10 more young kids on our block, and it just has to be, we're going to grow more. And the idea behind that is very simple. Yes, we hope we do, and we've hoped that for a long time, but we've also seen 15 years of losing at least 100 students over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So I think that the issue for us is then we said, okay, maybe they're wrong. So we asked Middle Cities to do their projections, and Middle Cities kind of came up with, actually theirs were worse than Pointe Cressa.
So these are the two, I would say, heavy hitters when it comes to predicting enrollment, which is what the majority of our funding is based on, is the number of students that we have in our seats.
And I would also say we've got 3 to 5 individuals in the community that this is what they do for a living. Yep. They do projections, and they've come in and they've taken the Pointe Moran, the Middle Cities. They've actually looked at SEMCOG data. They've actually looked then also at the number of offices and pediatricians' offices and determined how many of them are 48230 and 48236, and looked at the number of infants that we have coming up.
I think that's been a really exciting part of that process, is how many individuals within the community are so invested. They love our schools and they love our district, and they want to be part of the solution that best serves our students.
Well, and I think the other part of it is that we also are only predicting 5 years out. Yeah. And people get frustrated, so well, you got to know more than 5 years. Well, the idea behind it is that's how live births work. You know, we start when they're 5 years old, so we know. We go back to the point they're born, and that puts them into that year that we're getting ready to go into.
Well, the other question that I'm hearing is, why not wait for the census? And I think that's also tied to the question of, how is this addressing the loss of students we've already seen? Can you talk to me a little bit about how those are tied together?
Well, I think the census would be something that will be valuable information to us. Obviously, we have one that's almost 9.5 years old.
Yeah.
The new census data will be out very quickly. We actually had parents that wanted to go door to door and actually do our own census. I don't know how reliable that would have been, and I think the new federal census will give us another indication. I think it will also give us a clearer picture of where we are, what's in our community now. A lot of people are wondering, you know, is there potential for growth? And I think the answer to the question is, over time, I think we'll see that kindergarten number go from 450 to more in the 500 range. but I don't see it but jumping back up to the numbers that we've been graduating from our high schools, which are in
over
the 700 range.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about why now, and why do you feel comfortable using the data that we have now to make these important decisions?
Well, I think the thing of it is that all these people that have come in to help us, once we've really sat down with them and gone through and talked with them, they brought their data in. We're probably more all into this idea that we're going to get to a school district of about 7,200. We all kind of agree on that's the number we're headed towards. And then at that 7,200 number, does that mean we're going back to 8,900 where we did, back in the day? We think there's an uptick, but we are not going to be able to predict that accurately. It's more of a guess, and that's why we went to the SIMCOG data, just simply to see how many 50-year-olds there were, or how many 40-year-olds there were. And I think the thing that if we had John Dean on stage with us right now, we'd be looking at his three factors. One, we're not having as many children as we used to. Two, we don't, millennials are having them later. And three, there's just not as many of them as well. So
people are living longer and staying in their homes. That makes sense. One of the reasons for that is because the tax structure here is not designed in Michigan since Proposal A for people to downsize. So what we used to see was that people would get to a certain age and then they would downsize, and then families would move into that family home. But now we're seeing people age in place, and organizations like SOC, which is now called the Helm, working to help people do that comfortably. So talk to me a little bit more about what we can do as a community to digest these numbers, or where we could find that data if we're interested in exploring it more.
Well, I think the other piece to it is our housing stock. Our housing stock is 175 to 180 houses available currently. So when you talk about increasing your enrollment, if you stop and think about each house, we sell about a 900 to 1,000 homes a year. When you stop and look at that, you stop and say, well, how many houses would have to have 2 kids moving in?
Right.
And then obviously have some moving out. But the issue that you've raised is that in Michigan, we have an issue with regard to how we turn over housing stock. And we now have a very tight housing stock in the Grosse Pointe and Harper Woods communities.
Do you feel comfortable with the data that's presented to our elected board that they can make a decision now?
Well, I think we are always going to continue to look, and obviously if we see, and we'd all like to see an increase in enrollment, I mean, we'd all be happy with that. But the point of it is when we look back 15 years and we continue to go down the same 100 a year, it makes it hard to believe we're not going to go down to 7,200. And once we hit 7,200, we know that then we would have a capacity of over 1,200 seats available in our elementary schools to be able to handle any influx that we would have.
Right.
And those numbers would come back in our kindergarten area, our elementary area.
Well, thank you for exploring the data questions with us today. We hope that you'll continue to watch this series where we answer one of our frequently asked questions at a time. If you're interested in more data, all of that is available on our website, gpschools.org. Thank you.